how did you, to be honest, I mean, the real question is, how did you end up becoming CMLL's world's youngest champion?
So when I was wrestling in Puerto Rico, Victor Quinones was, he lived in Puerto Rico, and, Victor Quinones was working the Japan companies and working with the Mexican companies as well. And so I guess Paco Alonso had mentioned to Victor Quinones, hey, do you know anybody that wants to wear this mask? And it was a steel. It looked like steel on your face. It was a very cool mask. And Paco Alonso, from what I understand, was telling Victor Quinones, hey, I'm looking for somebody that's going to be, have a good physique, is going to be able to work really well and wear this mask because I want to do something with this mask. And at the time, Victor came back to Puerto Rico and he said, hey, I think you might work well with this mask. What do you think? And I remember having a discussion with Victor that, hey, I've been tagging with Shane for a lot of years now. I would prefer to go to Mexico as a tag team and continue this whole Canadian Glamour Boy thing. And just because it was working, and at the time I didn't want to, it wasn't that I didn't want to, I wanted to keep the Canadian Glamour Boy thing going because it was still making us money. It was still working. Why, let's ride the wheels off this thing. But then when I approached my partner Shane and I said, hey, do you want to maybe take a tag deal over to Mexico, see if we can get Victor to maybe get us in Mexico? And Shane didn't want to leave Puerto Rico. He fell in love with Puerto Rico. And I totally understood why. I love Puerto Rico too, but I really wanted to change. I've been in Puerto Rico for a long time at that point. And he wanted to stay there. And I was, okay, how can we do this? Like, if you want to stay here, I want to go to Mexico. Let's do something here in Puerto Rico where we split up the tag team. So I agreed to wear the steel mask in Mexico. I went to Victor and I said, hey, listen, if that steel mask is still available, I'll go over there as a singles. I just need a little bit of time for Shane and I to do our angle so we can drop the tag titles, do the separation, work it into a loser leaves town match. And we figured about 6 weeks of TV would be fine for that. And sure enough, Paco was fine with that. He gave us 6 weeks. Carlos in Puerto Rico was fine with that. So we, a couple of times on TV, we did the missteps where I caused us to lose. We end up losing the title. Then Shane and I butt heads over losing the title. We do a big blow-off match. Loser leaves town. And, of course, I lose. Shane stays there, and I become steel in Mexico. And so that's how we did it. It was through Victor Quinones. And the thing I really liked about it was the promoters were all, yes, that's a good idea. Write yourself off of TV in Puerto Rico and then come here and start. It wasn't like Paco Alonso saying, nope, you have to go quit Puerto Rico and wear this tomorrow. They were very open to, yes, let's do this, but can I have time to finish this up first? Because you always, like, for me, I was kind of come up in that old school era where when you start a story, you want to see it through to its end, get that big pop, blow off match, and, move on from that point. And the fact that both Carlos and Paco Alonso were more than willing to do that without any resistance whatsoever was, I guess, what I would consider a gem, because I didn't expect it. It was like, thank God I don't got to worry about promoters fighting each other over it. Because, for me, just to say, okay, I quit here out of the blue, doesn't sit right with me. So some promoters can really work within the business and really make things happen no matter where it is you're working.
I expect that probably worked in your favor eventually. If they're going to put the world title on you, well, he's obviously not just going to walk off if he gets a better offer somewhere. So that'd be a fantastic feather in your cap to sort of become world champion. Going to Mexico from Puerto Rico, did you have like any kind of introduction to Lucha Libre before you got to Mexico? And how much of a mind mess was that to have to work the other side and all the roles?
Yeah, so the whole idea, like, I watched Lucha Libre on TV and stuff. And when I watched Lucha Libre, I wasn't so much a fan of it. I was a fan for what they could do. It was spectacular. To me, it was like a gymnastics show. But there were things in there, and it's still even true today. There are things in there that there are moves that these guys do that are spectacular and they make no sense. And that is something that is just, it's in the culture of wrestling down there. And it's just the way it is. I come from really that old school era of storytelling. I want to be able to tell that story in the ring. I want to get that emotional connection with the fans. Now, there were a couple of wrestlers in Mexico that understood the power of creating that emotional connection with fans. Rayo de Jalisco Jr. was one of those guys that understood that connection. Let's face it, Rayo was never a great wrestler. But he did make an emotional connection with the fans, which is what got him over as big as he got over. And he understood that was his MO. Whereas the majority of Mexican wrestlers are there for the pop and the ooh, ah. And so when I went down there, I was going to stick to what's been working for me all prior to getting to Mexico, and that was creating an emotional connection with the fans. So when the Mexican wrestlers are saying they want to go bing, boom, bang, bing, fly here, fly there, catch me here, I was like, you guys do the flying, I'll do the catching. But there were simple little things and it's so common over there. If let's say I get clotheslined over the top rope to the outside, and as I'm feeding up on the outside, I'm expecting a tope is what's coming. I'm expecting the guy to be running, hitting those ropes as I'm standing up. So when I finally stand straight up, there he is making that connection. It doesn't work like that in Mexico. They literally stand in the middle of the ring and watch you stand up. And once you stand up and then face them, then they set off and run and hit the ropes. So I'm standing there watching this guy run all the way across the ring that way, all the way back across the ring, and he's going to tope me, and now I'm going to catch him. Like, logic would say, move. And so the one thing I was telling the guys that wanted to throw the tope inside the ring was, hey guys, as I'm feeding up, I'll have you at the corner of my eye and I'll time it. You just run. And as soon as I run and turn, I'll time it just as you're coming through the ropes to catch you. And the very first time that I was going, this is like my second match there, I think it was, and one of the guys, it was a 6-man, and one of the guys wanted to throw the tope. And sure enough, I'm standing up slow as I'm, on the floor, and I'm kind of looking out the corner of my eye, and he's standing in the middle of the ring looking at me. And I'm like, run. Like, don't stand there. I'm thinking this in my head. Like, why isn't he running? And then as I stand up, and now I'm trying to get up as slow as I can, waiting for him to run, and he still ain't running. And I stand right straight up, and I turn, and I look at him, and now he's looking at me in the middle of the ring, and now he goes and runs. So I walk away. And as he hits the ropes, and he can see clearly I'm walking away, so then he comes and hits his chest on the ropes and walks backwards into the ring, and I get back in the ring, and we just continue on. When we get backstage, he goes, amigo, why you don't take the tope? And I'm like, amigo, why you stand there and make me look like a dumbass watching you run across the ring? But it's so normal for them to do that there, and I didn't want any part of that. So I told him, I said, dude, if you're going to throw that tope, I'm not going to stand there and watch you run and come at me with the tope. Just do it. I promise you I'll catch you. And the very next night, we were doing the same match in a different town. And this time he ran, but it was the first time he ran without having the acknowledgement that the guy was going to actually stand there and catch him. He just relied on trusting that I said I would turn and catch you as you fly. And he did it. And he said he was scared. He was scared out of his mind as he's running, because he kept thinking, I hope he turns around. I hope he turns around. And as he flew through the ropes, there I was. And so he caught on to it right after he did it for the first time with me that way. But that's, I went in there not to change anything, because they got their own style, but I was going to keep doing the style. I was going to take their style and adopt it to my style, because that emotional connection with the fans was vitally important. And I think we made that emotional connection quick enough that Paco Alonso said, I need to put you with Rayo de Jalisco. And he put me right on top after the first few matches. And it was because I focused on creating that emotional connection with the fans, rather than just doing something spectacular that made no sense whatsoever, but got an applause because it looked cool. You know what I mean? And I think that's the big difference. The guys on top in Mexico work for that emotional connection. And a lot of the guys that are wondering how to get to the top don't even know what an emotional connection is the way I feel about Mexican wrestling.